Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Remember Who You Are podcast, where we discuss powerful and transformative plant medicine experiences. I'm your host, Ruger Hebert, and I run Mexisoul, a plant medicine retreat in Mexico. I'm here today with my guest, Lucy. Lucy taught high school art for 12 years. She was an area director for Young Life, a faith based teen outreach, for 19 years, and both of them while living in Elko, Nevada. Presently, she works part time as an area developer for Young Life International in Colombia and Venezuela, with her home base in Florida. This has allowed her to follow her passion to help teenagers find hope, faith, and love. Lucy grew up in southern Idaho in a very conservative family. After high school, she went to the University of Idaho, where she pursued her education in art, education, and graphic design. Lucy's been married to her husband for 45 years. They have 3 children and 3 grandchildren. She loves her job, traveling, baking, and art. And I'm one of those children. So this is something that's very unique. I'm interviewing my mom on my podcast. So the way this podcast kind of flows, I think you've listened to it, but basically it is 3 parts. So we're going to be talking about a powerful and transformative plant medicine experience. But first, we're going to go through how you kind of came to that decision, and then what the actual experience was like, and then how things have kind of shifted or transformed afterwards. So, Mom, if there's anything you'd like to add to that, let me know.
Um, One thing is that I just like to say that I stayed home with my children for 10 years, that I'm really proud about that. And it was a priority for me.
Thanks for sharing that. So I guess I am also a little bit curious, but so how did you go from not letting us watch The Simpsons when we were growing up to coming to Mexico to do a plant medicine retreat?
Mm. Okay, that's a loaded question. I was very close-minded in the past and very controlling as well. I think to jump forward to what led me to plant medicine is you. Um, it literally saved your life. And that's the most important reason. For that, I'll forever be grateful. And and so I felt like I needed to open my mind to understand it more. Um, it was I know, and I'm sure that you've shared your message, that it was almost 15 years. So we saw the process of plant medicine, and it's real. we've seen it, we know it, and we believe it. And later, Katie, my daughter, your sister, she also went to Mexisoul and found her healing. So with both of those things huge that happened in our lives, there's no doubt that my mind really opened up to plant medicine. The other reasons I started researching and realized that, I mean, it was helping veterans with PTSD. We watched the movie on the lost children and ayahuasca. These children were in the rainforest of Colombia for 40 days, ages 18 months to 13, and they couldn't find them. And they did ayahuasca, and ayahuasca led them to find these children. It was a eye-opening movie. For the main reason of you, Ruger, I would be an advocate for plant medicine for the rest of my life. However, I felt like, how can I really be an advocate if I really don't know it all and I haven't experienced it myself? So that was my thinking. And then I saw the women's retreat, and I liked everything it said um, about finding your own healing um, and sisterhood. And I thought if I'm going to do it, I would probably do it in a women's retreat because I felt like it would be really a safe place for me to open up and share. And also, Katie was a facilitator. So I think I was one of the first to sign up. So
Yeah.
that's what
Well,
led
that's
me to Mexisoul.
well, I want to talk about something for just a second because you did say that, it was controlling growing up, which is true. But I also believe, I mean, I don't believe that there's this right or wrong as far as these conscious decisions of like, I'm going to be controlling. I think it's all from the way we were raised and the way we were raised by our parents and then the way our parents were raised. Um, so, I do think it's most important to reiterate the fact that like the way it happened, I mean, everything that happened from growing up through childhood may not necessarily be easy, but it led to what I'm doing now. Like, you wouldn't be coming to the retreat. I wouldn't be in Mexico. We wouldn't be doing this podcast if it didn't happen exactly in the way it happened. So, in a way, and I believe this for anything that it's perfect.
Mm, that's awesome.
Um, and if you want to go into it though, I'm kind of curious. Um, I mean, I know that coming from a controlling, relatively like strict religious environment also had something to do like with your upbringing.
Yes.
Do you want to share some of that? So I think it might be helpful
Um,
too for me to get a bit of a perspective.
yeah, it was very, very strict. And I was raised in the Mormon church, and it was only you could only do that. There was no other option. And so it's a very strict religion, and that's how I grew up. And I remember my dad just being so very strict, and you couldn't even get out, "Dad, can I," without finishing your sentence. It was just no. So I rebelled.
Okay, so you went through a rebellious phase.
Right? And I tried to find truth on my own, and honestly, I couldn't figure out why every church says they're the only true church. And so I started just kind of trying to find out what I believe, and and actually, I'll maybe get into it later, but I experienced a lot of rejection from my dad in growing up. And so, even trying to find God, I felt like I was rejected by God as well. So, it took years of searching and trying to find truth. And I finally just threw it all up and just said, if there is a God, take me, I'm yours. And things started to change, and it was evident that there is a God. And so I started following that voice and learning and growing. And it was maybe a year later that I ran into Young Life in college. And that's when I thought, kids don't have to work this hard to find truth. So that's what led me to Young Life, because it's fun. It's only for teenagers when they're going through that hard time. and it helps them to find hope and faith and love.
Have you read or has Katie shared any of the parts of the book that she wrote with you? That's my
No,
sister.
yeah, no, I don't know anything about it.
Okay. Well, actually, I mean, interestingly enough, I didn't plan on this, but I had part of this um, open on my computer right now.
Mm,
So there are more than four, but there's basically four pillars of separation.
mm,
And I'm going to just kind of share that with you. So there's
okay.
inherited lies that shape our identity. And these core beliefs, excuse me, are not your truth. They're inherited wounds passed down, absorbed, and embedded into your psyche through culture, family systems, religion, and media. They exist because they're meant to be rewritten.
Mm,
So one of them is I am bad. And this belief teaches us that we are inherently flawed, unworthy of love or goodness. It teaches us that love must be earned through perfection, obedience, and performance.
mm,
It disconnects us from our divine nature and replaces self compassion with self punishment. It keeps
mm.
us stuck in shame, afraid to be seen, convinced that if others knew our truth, they would leave. But the truth is, you are not bad. You're human, you're a love at your core, and love does not require perfection. And then another one that is actually what you said that reminded me of this is that I am alone and I am separate, separate from whatever you believe, but separate from God, separate from the universe, separate from existence. And this
Mm,
is a belief that isolates us. It convinces us that we're abandoned, disconnected, and unworthy of connection to something greater. It makes
mm.
us feel like we don't belong, like no one will ever fully understand, accept, or hold space for our truth. And yet, love and connection are our natural states, and you're never alone. You never were. You're just an extension of God, just as a wave is part of the ocean.
Wow. Okay.
And then there's kind of a second part that we worked on. We worked on and spoke together, and this is what we're trying to do. Is that one of the reasons why we're here? I believe is that you're remembering your truth. And I'll just read this again: is that you are not bad. You are not separate. You are not unsafe. You are not lacking. These beliefs were never yours to begin with. They are not your essence. They are an illusion. They're the dust that covers your gold or the fog that clouds your brilliance. You came here with a divine assignment to remember, to reclaim the parts of you that you were taught to hide, to alchemize the energy and turn pain into power, to extract the lessons and establish and live in your truth, to rewrite the story, to return to love, to be free to live. You are sacred and you're not the story, you're the soul beneath it.
This is in her book,
Yeah.
or this is some. Oh, wow. Okay. That's beautiful.
So I kind of am realizing this now and I want to just share this with you, but I also still feel that this process that, you've inherited from your parents and your upbringing and that has also been carried on to me is I think one that we're still healing. And I think it's okay to say that and it's okay to kind
Mhm,
of talk about that.
mhm. Yeah, definitely.
Because it's something too that, I've had a lot of frustration towards as well, especially growing up, and then one that where it's come up through plant medicine experiences where I'm still processing it. Even like before this podcast started, there was some frustration that has nothing to do with probably the podcast. It has to do with my own internal feelings that I haven't completely quite resolved.
Hmm.
But I just wanted to share that with you that it's an ongoing process, and I've said this to a lot of people that have come to the retreat, but any person who kind of goes against the tribe and the tribe being, these conditioned beliefs of what is right and what is wrong and what you should do, or you shouldn't do, something that maybe is said as like evil. I have so much like appreciation and respect for you to be able to come and do what you did.
Thank you. I'm proud of myself.
You mentioned growing up in a kind of a controlling also religious environment. Then you mentioned a period of rebellion.
Mhm.
And I kind of feel, well, I did feel for a very long time that also it was a bit of like an overcorrection. And part of the dynamics of our relationship growing up was that you didn't want me to make the same mistakes that you did in the rebellion.
Exactly.
And I think we can say that that doesn't really work.
No, no. At the time, I thought I was really right, and I wasn't.
Yeah. When
And
I
I
don't,
really believe that by learning what I'm doing with Young Life has helped me to be more open-minded about that. Um, you were the first child, so that made yeah, everything had to be, it was harder on you, I'll put it that way, because I hadn't learned, and all as I did was what I knew, the way I was raised, and so um, that's why it fell on you. As I learned and grew, I think it was easier as we went. However, you still had to go through that.
yeah. And that's the process that I've kind of gone through over these years too, that I still think it's still a bit of this process is just, I mean, it's empathy and understanding and realizing that like there's no malicious intent. There's no right or wrong with the controlling. It's just that's I mean nobody else would ever be doing anything different with the same circumstances and life and knowledge and experiences they had. It's just like that's kind of just what we are as humans for the most part doing the best we can. And I
Right,
really think um that it is oftentimes we attribute like bad or malice when really it's not having the awareness or level of consciousness yet.
right.
But it's also something that I've started to get more and more accepting on too, of just like I feel like what I'm doing right now is related to purpose, this deep
Mhm,
understanding of like giving back to the world. And
mm,
I would not have been able to do it without the circumstances of growing up. And I've kind of gone through this process of just like, I mean, really like allowing myself to feel any feelings or yeah, any feelings associated with the my entire childhood
mm,
and allowing them to exist and be as they are, and then letting that energy pass and coming from a place of forgiveness,
mm,
eventually even realizing that like nobody needs to be forgiven because nobody's done anything wrong.
mm,
And then by acknowledging and realizing that, then I'm able to accept myself and to realize all those things and to let go and um,
mm,
basically forgive myself. I don't really like using the word forgiven because it implies somebody did something wrong, but that's like you reach a level of consciousness where you realize that nobody needs to be forgiven.
mm,
And that's where I also mentioned when I wrote those things too, is that our worth and our value is inherent, not earned.
mm. That's so deep. You know, that was the other thing that I noticed in you and Katie is the wisdom that you carry right now is is amazing. And that's learned as you go through plant medicine.
Well, and it started with a child that was controlling sometimes. That's where, I mean, because growing up in an environment like that creates the willingness and the idea to like question things and wonder why things are happening or going on. So it also, if you think about it too, it was a perfect environment to be doing what we're doing now.
Hmm. It's amazing.
And something that I just would like to encourage you to is I think we're still in this process too of allowing each other to just be as we are and be as we were. And I think too, and maybe this will be coming up when you discuss plant medicine, but is also allowing yourself, mom, to like forgive yourself
Hmm.
and then also realize that you don't need to be forgiven.
I didn't know the second part there. um, there is another reason why I think I was being called led to plant medicine too, is that I just when you get a little older, I'm almost 70 now, and there's kind of a shift in your psychology, and you start thinking a couple of things. One is, did I do okay? And then the other is almost fear of the future. And so I think I'd shared with you that I kind of experienced some fear. I mean, Dad and I both have had cancer, and so there's a fear of that coming back. I mean, just different fears. And I thought, this is not good. And I felt like I needed healing, and that's what I was looking for, healing and peace.
Okay, well, you made the decision to sign up, and I remember I had the phone call with you the same as I do with anybody else that's interested. Um, I kind of remember I wasn't shocked. I wasn't like completely shocked that you had signed up, but I still was pretty surprised. Like I wasn't shocked now, but if you would have told me like 5 years ago, I would have been like, no, there's no way that's ever going to happen ever.
Well, like I said, I mean, y- you had tried everything, and it was just years of rehab and medications and things that didn't work. It didn't it didn't save your life. And I remember the day, I remember the place I was when you called and you said, I'm going to do ayahuasca. And I said, no, 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 don't, please don't. I thought it was, I don't know, I was afraid of losing you. And you said, Mom, what do I have to lose? And we saw the process and was just completely amazed that it saved your life.
Well, I remember looking back on it too. I remember a little bit differently, but I remember saying, I'm going to do this. And you said, I really don't want you to do this. And I said, well, I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah,
And then I also think it's relevant just to mention that I think I realized this too is that I want to be careful with what I say here, but a person who is experiencing a lot of dissatisfaction with life and gets to the point of a breaking point, I mean, I think that is also not always necessarily like a bad thing. I mean, of course, like I had been struggling with suicidal ideation. It was to the point where I had to check myself into a place. But also, like looking back now, it's almost like I had to get to a point of like absolute surrender
mm,
so that I could break through that
yeah,
like mental resistance, that victim mentality, that life is suffering, you live, you suffer, you die. I had to basically get to a point where I had to surrender. It's either like, okay, either I don't want to exist anymore, or like I'm open to whatever it is.
right.
All right, well, let's talk about I I was at the beginning of the women's retreat, and then I
Hmm.
got kicked out because I'm not a woman. But I remember just going into that room at the beginning to give kind of the introduction and to welcome everybody. I could feel like the heaviness. I mean, I could feel that it was going to be something like very, very powerful.
Hmm. Yeah, it
So
really,
we
really
can,
was.
so let's kind of we can transition into those experiences. I know you had I kind of felt that you were going to have something related to what happened the first night.
Really. Wow. Okay. Well, one thing before you left is I said, do you have any advice? And you said, just be brave. So I kept thinking of that the whole time I was there, because I would think before the retreat, I didn't really feel brave. I know I've done some very brave things and had to be strong, but generally I didn't feel like that was that I was brave. So I'm glad that you told me that. And then so I felt like, okay, this is a ladies retreat. We're going to find ourselves and it's going to be fairly easy. That's what I thought.
Hmm.
And so we go into the first night with the psilocybin, and I had peace. I felt really good about it as I was kind of taken away. It took me to the hospital where you were born, and it was a really hard labor. I mean, it was an unusual pregnancy because I went 6 weeks over, and you were 9-3, and so it was really hard. So that was, I even felt the pain, which is, unbelievable in childbirth. But the pain after that was even worse. And it was you. And it was so much pain. I'd never felt that much pain in my entire life. And I cried, I sobbed, and it just didn't stop. And it was like hours of excruciating pain. And it was the pain that you had to live through to get where you are now. And so it just kept going. And it was just really, really hard. And it was for hours. It just seemed like forever. And then I remember looking up and other people were dancing and stuff. And I'm just crying. I was just like, why? I don't understand. But Katie was there and she just kept saying to surrender and breathe. And that was super helpful. So I got through that. And the next morning, I just thought, I will never do that again in my whole life. I text Dad and I said, I will never do this again in my whole life. And I messaged you. And that was the most helpful thing. I couldn't have moved on. But you messaged me back and you said you you heal what you feel. Is that right? Or you heal what you feel. Yeah. And it's not always just for yourself. And that just shocked me. I just thought, okay, let me wrap my brain around that for a minute. And also, I went and talked to the other two leaders, Louisa and Krista, and they both said, you could be healing Ruger. You could be liberating Ruger. And so I just thought then it was worth it. And it was my honor, even. And so we went on about our day. After that, there was a workshop, and Louisa did that. And she did a really simple activity that you just took a pen and you did the infinity circle. And as you did that, she would say words. And if they were words that bothered you, then you did a zigzag, right? Very simple. And I thought, oh, okay, this is fine. And then she said something about family, ancestors, or generations, or something like that. And I went, like a big zigzag.
Yeah.
And so then I thought, oh, geez, it's still there. So then we got in small groups, which was really helpful because then it made you, you had to talk about what bothered you. And um, and so in my family, there were 3 girls and 1 boy. And my dad did everything with my brother, and and the 3 girls, we just felt like we weren't even seen. Um, we I it was very hard. I felt rejected, and so that's how I grew up as a little girl. Um, I kind of learned to be silent because there was kind of this children are to be seen and not to be heard kind of thing. And it was like tiptoeing around my dad a lot. And I would beg to go with him. He'd go camping, fishing, hunting, snowmobiling with my brother, but he would not take the girls. And he always had an excuse not to be with him. And so it was just rejection after rejection. Um, and so I tried to look like my brother. I was really tomboy. I dressed like him. I even tried to comb my hair like him just to get attention from my dad. And it didn't work. So, and I'll say this is that my dad was really good to my mom, and we did family things together, like camping or not hunting, but just camping or something like that, but never individual, never gave attention to the girls. So, like people have asked, did you ever remember being on his, like reading a book with him or him telling you he loved you? And no, or hugging, no, just none of that. And so, I felt like I have forgiven him because, well, I'll put it this way, that lasted for 30 some years. And unfortunately, my youngest sister, Susie, she contracted the AIDS virus, and she died a year later. And this was in 1992. And so that I say this because that like sent my dad into a severe depression for about a year, and then he actually changed, and he couldn't even work anything, and then he changed, and so we were able to get along, enjoy each other, and I'd forgiven him, but the pain was still there, and apparently I hadn't, like, I don't know, I hadn't healed from it all. And so so that kind of came out, and when we were doing it, I just thought, really, we have to go there. I thought I've kind of pushed that aside, and it was fine over here, and I just left it. And everything was there, and I could even put it in a drawer, and it was out of sight, if that makes sense. Now, on my mother's side, my mother saved us. Like, she was so loving and kind, and a lot of late night talks that was so kind and loving, and kind of tried to make up for my dad, I think. So there was that. So we had that workshop and talked a lot about generational. I was really interested in healing generational wounds because I know that they're there. So we talked a lot about generations, forgiving, loving, and celebrating, and then we went into the Satori the next day. So I'm saying a little bit of all of this because it all makes sense and comes
Mhm.
together. So we go into the Satori, and that was I was really worried because I had no idea what was going to happen then, but it was different. It was very beautiful and loving, and it was something that I felt in a way like that I could let go, like I could forgive, I could heal, and I could love myself and the others. And but in that, I felt an arm going over my shoulder. Like, I mean, not literally feel it, but it just, you imagine it. An arm came around my shoulder, and it was a woman. It was a mother, and it didn't go all the way around me. It was like she was putting her arm over around me to just either sit with me, show me, or walk with me. And so that was really cool. And at that point, I was thinking of my mother's side of the family, who I'd like to tell about sometime. That my great grandmother has quite an interesting story, and I'd like to think that it was her being with me. So, interestingly enough, just 2 months before this, I went to see my mother's cousins in Kansas because I had a big, not a big, but a suitcase full of pictures, like black and white pictures. My mother and I were always going to go through them, and she died of COVID, and we never got to. So I went to their place to go through these photos and find out more who these people are. And there was this picture of a whole family, and they told me who it was, and it was my grandfather's mother. So it was my great grandmother, and her name was Amanda. And they said, and I named Katie, your sister, my daughter, after Amanda, because all as I knew is that she was a strong woman, very faithful, and that she raised 10 kids, like all by herself. I thought, that's an amazing woman. And then they said, well, you knew that she left him, right? And I went, wait, what? And here's this picture of all these kids. The dad is over here and Amanda's over here. The dad is Moses. He was extremely abusive. My grandfather told me that, and alcoholic. And he'd come home and beat on those kids, and most likely the wife too. Well, they told me that. So not only that happened, but she found out that he actually had a whole nother family, wife and children, several miles away. So this is all in 1910,
Mhm.
like only horseback. And so when she finds out all of this and all this is going on, she saved her money, and she had just chickens, and she saved the money that she sold from the eggs and whatever else she could. And she bought, and she took 3 of the boys were already in World War I. All the rest of them, there were 6, and then she was pregnant with 1. They walked 5 miles to the train station, and she bought tickets to go from Missouri to Newton, Kansas, and got away from him. So that just completely blew me away. So I had been really thinking about her and the strength that she had, but way back then. Like, it was just insane. And so that's why I thought in the Satori, maybe that was her. But I did think about her a lot. So that was coming up, and just thinking about my mother's side of the family, who were just amazing. My grandpa was just like my father figure. I loved him dearly. And so I knew I loved her dearly. Like, she must have been just so amazing. So we'll put that there for a minute. And then we go into another workshop. And the next workshop is talking about not only to honor our lineage now, we have forgiven and healed, right? But also about the warrior within you, like the warrior woman within you and the brave woman within you. And I thought of Amanda again, because I thought maybe I got some of her strong spirit, in me. And and so
Well,
so
we inherit.
then we go in
We don't just inherit our weaknesses or negative parts. We inherit the positive and virtuous things as well.
there. Yeah. Yeah. And because of all of the poor feelings that I had growing up, I guess I didn't celebrate my ancestors at all. And when she even talked about celebrating ancestors, it was just like, ugh. And so that was my healing. This retreat is huge. Healing. For the first time in my life, I had a deep appreciation, admiration, and I could celebrate my lineage. So then we go into the last ceremony, which was the psilocybin. I went into it thinking if I need to feel the pain again, I will. I had to let go and just trust what it was going to do. But it was really, really, really beautiful, loving in every possible way. I felt the presence of God in me, around me, everywhere. And I felt like, again, I was healing. I was forgiving, healing, and loving myself and everyone. And it was just it was deep. And I feel like I'm pretty spiritual person, but this is deeper than I've ever felt. Is this deep praise and almost blessing, like blessing everyone and blessing, I don't know, just my life, being thankful, grateful. And then this is the odd part is that I had like a phrase or a word, and it was very breathy, and it was like, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya.
That was
And
what
it
kept
meant so much.
coming out of your mouth in the ceremony.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad that Katie got to see it, because it just meant so much. I was just like in deep, deep thankfulness. And I just remember, and I think it was just breathy. That's all I can say is just, but I'd never in my life heard that word ever, or that phrase in any context ever. And so I get home and I'm trying to find out what was that, what was the meaning of all that. And I wrote it down because Heya is used in a chant or song. It doesn't have a specific word meaning. It's used in Native American music to invoke a spiritual presence and express deep connection. So I thought that was pretty cool, because in that I was feeling very much the warrior spirit of Amanda,
Mm.
and celebrating her, how strong she was, and she was alone. And
And in the 1900s.
I can't. This was probably 1915. Yeah. And then also, Heya comes from the Hebrew meaning to be. The term is used signifying divine completeness, power, and eternal presence. So even God used it when he spoke to Moses in Exodus. So I was thinking, like when I wrote down about being growing up, I always felt that I just couldn't be me. I just couldn't be myself because it wasn't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we get to all through all of this, and then I'm praising in this deep way of just to be me. And that's what it means. And so it sounds very simple, but it meant so much to me. And I'm so thankful for it. It when Krista came around and she said, "Lucy, it's time to wake up now," and I said, "I don't want to." I was really enjoying it and appreciating it, and yeah, just really reaching out to all the women in the room, and just a connection of the whole of everybody in the in everyone, everything and everywhere. So I've looked it up, and the only song that even is close is the Water Song by Shayla Ray. Yeah, and that reminds me of that moment. So I'm super thankful for that.
The thing that we both said after plant medicine is that we felt what God was like. At least I said this, that I felt the church had been telling me that God felt like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know things, and you read things, but I still felt like sometimes when you pray, you're praying to someone out there. And I think through the retreat that I finally realized that I'm praying, God is in me,
Hmm.
and we're all one. And so it's deeper and more meaningful.
Well, I'm so glad that you were able to come and be brave and have that experience because it's still, from what from what you shared in the group and what you've shared with me and what you've shared with Katie, I know it's still a bit of an ongoing process, but it is really nice to be able to connect with you on like that level and be able to see you kind of let go of some of those things that I've also seen that you've been holding on to for a very, very long time.
Hmm. It's very freeing.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to like mention or discuss regarding the ceremonies themselves?
I think they should continue doing the women's, it looks like you're having a men's retreat coming up. It looked like, um, but the women's retreat was it has to. I haven't been to another one where there was both, so I don't know, but it was very special in the way that we were immediately comfortable and open. I mean, everyone just shared stuff at, from the very beginning,
Hmm.
just deep, deep stuff. So it just felt comfortable, and I think they should continue doing that. I don't know that I could personally open up as much as I did in a group where, guys and girls are in a group together. So I
Yeah.
think they should continue to do that. Oh, and I wanted to say too, is I had a massage with Rosa, and, I was just thinking, oh, it's just a massage. But she is part of the everything there. And she just gave this amazing massage. And at the end, she could feel my spirit. And she's like, you feel very impatient. And that is really important for me to know, Ruger, because I'm always busy. And that's the way my mom was. And that's not healthy. And she said, try to be present. And here I am in a massage. You would think I would be just out and comfortable, but she could feel the presence of just being impatient. And so I thought that was really, really helpful. It's really interesting that she picked up on that, and I'm learning from that. And the other thing is in going to a retreat, for me, I'm just going to throw this out there, is that I have always been taught to take care of everyone else. So as a wife, mother, teacher, and what I do in Young Life, you're taking care of everyone else. And I get a lot of joy out of that, but it's not healthy. I wasn't taking care of myself. And so I knew that I needed to go to the retreat for that, but also it was hard to be there and be served. Like, I'm not used to that. I'm always serving other people or helping other people. So that was hard to let go.
Yeah. Well, how do you think these retreats started? No, I mean that's something that I've only become aware of in the past, year or so. Of just I've always been taking care of other people and putting myself first as a caretaker, and putting other people's emotions first and their feelings first, and it's still in this process of trying to kind of break that.
Yeah,
And I
it's
do,
out of balance.
yeah. Well, I mean, I do think it is. I think we talked about this at a different time, but I think it is this process of like, okay, becoming aware of it, feeling the emotions behind it, and then what I had told you was two parts. One, I said, what you feel, you heal, and then I also said, what you see, you set free. So that means of
Mm.
what not just what you see with your eyes, obviously, but your when you become aware of something. So when it goes from like kind of your subconscious to your conscious, your patterns and behaviors, then you're able to kind of modify them. And but sometimes that process is, that process itself is sometimes a challenging one. But I think that's the start. And then I think, fortunately, I believe that is mostly it. The willingness to kind of see those releases them.
Mm.
Okay, well, the last part of this is mainly to discuss and talk about what has shifted. So, I think some of this you've already kind of covered. You're able to forgive and heal some of the ancestral burdens and trauma. But if you want to go into anything with that,
I think I definitely feel free, and I feel more content, and more focused. And whenever I start feeling anxious or what am I supposed to be doing, like what's next, then I just calm down and think to just be myself, and what I learned from that. So I've learned to slow down and take some alone time and um, and be grateful. There's probably a lot more,
I
but I
saw a few things that you shared in the group about like dancing when you got home.
can't. Yeah, yeah. I love to dance, and so I played the water song and I danced, and I just felt good. I never really had the confidence to do that before, so I'd like to continue to do that.
Do you gonna take dancing
Actually, I
classes?
like to, yeah, I mean, I thought about that, but also I like to turn off the lights and put music on and just dance and enjoy it. We used to do that when we were in college. A friend of mine, that my roommate, and it was really, and she was a dancer. I mean, that was her thing and her degree. But there's so much. I mean, I want to read, I want to download a bunch of music, and there's so much that you learn in 1 week that it's like, okay, I got to slow down and take one step at a time. But the best part is that I really feel free, and I know that it's a work in progress. I know that I need to be realistic about that, but I don't feel the rejection like I did. And like I said before, I thought I was done with that, but it was still holding me back. And in that way, I mean, from if you're going to do something, you think, no, I you almost don't feel like you deserve it when you have that um, feeling of rejection. It's that's what it feels like, is that you almost don't feel like you deserve things.
Well, thank you
But
for
now I do. I feel like I deserve them, and I feel like I'm brave.
thanks for sharing that. I'm so glad you were brave and made the decision to come and do this. And thank you for sharing everything. Um, so, a question I usually ask everyone that comes on the podcast is just, what would you say to somebody that is considering this?
I would think deeply about what you need, because I would say don't ever give up on yourself, because there's help out there, and you're proof, Ruger. Plant medicine is healing without a doubt. Um, I would say to really listen to everything that you guys encourage and suggest, because I did everything for probably a month before going to prepare
Hmm.
in every way I could. And I think that that's helpful to get your mind set that I'm going to help myself. I'm going to do this for myself, and I'm going to find healing and peace.
Well, it's nice. I enjoy hearing you kind of talk more like that. It is a bit more, I mean, I can notice a difference where you're a bit more stepping into your power that is related and similar to the ancestor you mentioned
Mm,
than in the past.
yeah, me too. I plan to look into it more if I can find, I plan to find information more about my ancestors. And I celebrate both sides, all of my ancestors, not just one side anymore.
Amazing. All right, Mom, Lucy. It's weird to say Lucy. Mom, thank you so much for being on the podcast. If you are interested in, if anyone listening is interested in attending the retreat, then please check out the information below.